Hello, friends and neighbors. This is DJ's Album Share, and I'm your host, DJ Roller. And this week, I'm joined by my guest, Nicky, aka Beat Nick. He's a beatboxer, a local beatboxer here in Richmond, Virginia, and a good friend of mine. I really enjoyed the conversation we had today. We were talking about some of the greatest lyricists of all time. Two awesome rap albums, one being Krs-one Sneak Attack, and the other being Wu-Tang Clan's Iron Flag. And it was a quick conversation, but a good conversation. And if you wanted to go and follow Nicky at all platforms, you can follow him at Beat Nick and also the Beatbox Chef on Instagram. Check out his stuff. He does a lot of cool stuff. He's a very talented beatboxer and a good friend of mine, man. I hope you enjoy the conversation. Don't forget to like and subscribe and share, rate, review, all that good stuff on any platform you're listening to. So thanks, guys. I do appreciate all the support and enjoy the episode. What's up, Nick?
Yo, what's going on?
Man, appreciate you coming over here doing this. This is exciting.
Yeah,
these are like the first two rap albums that I've done, and it's awesome to start with like some of the most elite lyricists there are, I feel like.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's really cool. I never really had gotten into KRS-One before. So this was one of my first really listens to his stuff. And it was pretty cool because I picked up right off the bat. I did a lot of research after the fact because I wanted to come in and kind of know what I was talking about. It was hard to find some old reviews because these albums are from like, 2001 or whatever. So I was looking up like old Rolling Stones reviews and old reviews on the albums. And everything was like, both albums that we picked, these guys had a career in like the mid-90s. And like this was like their comeback album almost. And like with KRS-One, the thing I picked up immediately, he doesn't rap about materialism or like having shit. It's all about how lyrically good he is, you know? Mm-hmm. So I was interested right off the bat with that, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think the album that I gave you was a pretty random album to throw at you. But the reason I gave you that one was because that was sort of like, it wasn't my first intro, but it was in the group of like what introduced me to hip hop. And I think KRS-One, if you really like dig into this guy, he's kind of the you can use him as sort of a fulcrum of like hip hop knowledge, and he sort of bridges
the teacher.
The teacher. And yeah, so I thought like, I mean, he kind of embodies hip hop.
Yeah.
He like spits hip hop as sort of like a lifestyle and a philosophy. So I thought I think like people who are into rap, it's important to know about who this guy is. And
100%. I mean, that was one of the things that I was like, he does without doing actually like music, he actually does speeches and stuff as well. Like he's a pretty like,
yeah, man,
he's a pretty big guy in the industry of hip hop and stuff. And I know he's put on a lot of people, but it was cool to like, I mean, dude, I'm 29 years old, so all of these like early 90s, mid 90s, early 2000s rappers, you've heard them, but you don't associate with them like who they are a lot of times, unless it's like it is like Wu-Tang or something like a big name like that, right? Like, so I probably heard more than his stuff than I could admit, but the fact that I never put a name to the music until now was something. And I really was really cool about it. For me, the one of the first really cool songs was the Attendance song. There was this line in that, the Noah line. I'm gonna take you 2 by 2, you and all that stuff. Like that was a pretty cool line for me. But it reminded me like, or it made me pick up. He uses a lot of like biblical stuff in his raps as well, which is pretty wild. You know, for somebody of that time period, like to be rapping about God and stuff. Yeah. I don't know, man. You're talking about 2001. That's really like it's a weird time, dude.
Yeah. Well, I mean, KRS-One was definitely far past his prime in 2001. Like I think that this album Sneak Attack was sort of just like him still like laying down his message, like we're still here. I mean, this guy is super deep. Like, I'm not even gonna do him enough justice, like talking about him. But he was like a really prolific leader back in the day, and he was like involved in a lot of like activist type movements, stop the violence, like, you know, really using hip hop as like a teaching tool. And he's just kind of an incredible dude in a lot of ways, like just like how the kind of like him as an entertainer, him as a teacher, like him, like his self-knowledge, like he's just like, if you get down on like you know, philosophy and spirituality and truth seeking and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I mean, that obviously is what makes him the lyricist that he is, right? Because he's not talking about bland topics. He's talking about deeper topics that are really I think that those headier type of rappers are what like people who really like hip hop or like that era of hip hop really got into, like myself, like the ones that I listen to, like I really like Method Man and the Wu-Tang Clan, all that stuff I was really into. But you talk about some of the shit that they get into is more hardcore, obviously, but it's still more lyrically than it is materialistically. Yeah. You know, like it's not about what I have, it's about what I'm going to do to you. And that's a lot of the stuff with Krs-one is a diss track too.
Yeah.
So he's got this like flow that's like, I'm better than you, whatever, and I'm going to show you how. And lyrically, he shows you. And there's a couple of things, man, that he was doing on that I was just like tripping out about because I've only listened to it about 3 times through, but I try to listen to the whole thing at one time because that's kind of the angle I want to go at. I know he's there's in the middle of it he has this is the B side. Think of it if you're listening to a CD, you're gonna flip over the record. He made that to be like an old school fucking rap album or on a cassette even where you had to flip it over. You know what I mean? Same concept as an old LP or something.
Yeah.
So that to me was like hell yeah, man. I'm into that. I love that angle because that's kind of with the other albums that I've been talking about. They're all like old rock albums, right? They're old vinyls. That's the same thing, right? You get to the B side, you got to flip it over. Yeah. And like for him to acknowledge it like that, I was like, hell yeah, man, that's pretty cool.
Well, I mean, he's like the foundation of hip hop, man. I mean, he comes from like the original teachers of hip hop. Like African Bambaataa was like his mentor. You like a lot of like MCs in the 90s. You can see how like a lot of rappers that we all like got down on, people who are like billionaires and millionaires these days.
Yeah,
they really a lot of influence came from Krs-one. I mean, definitely like I know that if you went through all his music, you would catch a lot of like classic hip hop type beats that you'd be like, oh my gosh,
yeah,
like, I know I've heard this before.
This is
like,
where this comes from.
Yeah, and
speaking of MCs, he's got a line in that song, "Crush Them." The MC is the most confused.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's one of the articles I was reading is that's like one of his most famous lines because he was like dissing like most of the MCs at the time because they didn't know what their role actually was.
Yeah.
And he's like, you guys don't understand. Like we've laid this out for you already. You know what I mean? For like years. Like just do what you know.
Yeah.
Everybody's trying to reinvent the wheel a lot of times. Yeah. You know what I mean? When it's already kind of it's laid out there for you. I've tried to do it myself. So,
yeah.
You know,
we're all kind of trying to do it our own way.
Yeah. Instead of looking at going, you know, people have been doing this for a long time to get to where, you know, what we're influenced by.
Yeah.
It's hard to take your own ego out of it for a second and be like, you know, other people have done it better than me already. Let me take some influence from them, you know, not inspiration really, but influence. And it's funny, these diss rappers, man, because they'll call you out on that shit immediately. We're like, yeah, you're trying to do something that it's already been done 1,000 times, man.
Well, I think a like big thing about art is like copying. I think you know, I think it's just like how you use it for yourself. How do you incorporate what you learn copying someone and make it your own rather than just completely biting it.
Right.
But yeah, that was
the whole thing of sampling, right? Like,
yeah.
You sample someone else's music. It's not necessarily you're trying to steal from them. You just think that little hook of that line or whatever, that song is just fire enough to like, you can rap on it. Yeah.
Yeah, man. That's something I've been getting into in the last month or so. I got this MPC, this like machine at home, and I've been like learning how to play on the drum kit, set up my pads, like learning about sampling.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, so that's kind of my venture right now. It's been fun.
One thing with the God angle that like he pulls it in with the last song with the raptism.
Yeah,
it's like so obvious. Like, oh, come on, man. I just think it was for me, man. Looking back, and I was kind of younger at that point in time, but I don't remember a lot of what was going on. But to look back of like reading articles and reading stuff and to know like what was going on in the time period, for him to come out and be rapping biblically to these guys, and then a lot of the stuff like he has one song in the middle, "Doth Now" or something like the way he uses language is so much more advanced than the other rappers at the time. Is the point I was getting at, and it's like his beats might be a little stale almost because like he's been doing on like the same thing the whole time. But if you listen to him lyrically in 2001, he's doing stuff with words that other guys at the time can't even like. He's on a level of his own.
Yeah, almost, well, I mean, like I said, he's the foundation for a lot of these guys, and he's a very real dude. Like Krs-one, his first album, Criminal Minded, that like that was apparently recorded with $50, one take through the whole time, and also at the time he was homeless, and so and he was chose that path himself, and he says he remembers sitting on the subway, and there's all these dudes with a stereo listening to Sound of Police, I think it was, or it was one of his tracks, but and they're like, yo, this is the truth right here. Like, this is the dude right here. And like, little they know, this is homeless guy who's sitting like right over here.
Him,
yeah. And so,
that's insane, dude.
Yeah, man, he's really in touch with himself. Like, he's in touch with God. He's in touch with like,
for a humble beginning like that, you almost have to be, you know what I mean? Like to choose to go that route, and also to believe enough in yourself that the confidence with rappers is always, as a musician, like I don't always have the confidence to get up and play something in front of someone or play in front of someone, you know what I mean? And I feel like I've known of a couple of different people I've grown up with, and a couple of people I met here in Richmond pursue doing lyricism, and I'm like, dude, I don't have the confidence to say what you're saying. It's hard enough for me to play an instrument in front of somebody, dude. There's no way I could get up and say some stuff like that. And then for him to be like, all right, I believe enough in myself that I can take this chance. And this is gonna work. I mean, it is probably pretty fucking scary at that moment. But like you said, he probably started seeing some results, and he's like, "All right, let's do this." You know?
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing to me also how resourceful like hip hop artists have always been. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like other musicians you talk to are like, "Oh man, it cost me this amount of money to go into the studio," and then you hear like, this dude made this album for like $50.
Just making shit happen.
Make shit happen. You know what I mean? Like, that's resourceful as shit. And I've always been envious of that as a musician. Was like, man, how can I just save up my little amount of money and buy the minimalist amount of stuff that I need to do what I need to do?
Right.
I'm starting to figure it out now. But it's something that I think that we all, no matter what style of music you're into, like whether you're into acoustic music or whatever, you can always look at other genres of music and see what they do well and go, hey man, that's cool shit. These guys are very fucking resourceful. They know how to find stuff for deals, and they know how to sample music. And not only sample music, you know, there's some idea that like some rappers and artists and people who sample music, they bring back some of that old music, you know, like the song, this is kind of off topic, but the song for Hi My Name Is, the Dre sampled for Eminem, that song is like a 70s like Caribbean funk song that like was lost. That album was like lost to time, and there was like some interview Eminem was like, yeah, we still owe that dude money for like that song. So it's like they brought that a little line of music back out of obscurity.
Yeah, made it
so
infamous.
like so the thing is, like, to me is like, well, Dre, whoever found it, they had to be listening to that and go, man, this is awesome. You know what I mean? So they had to have an appreciation of that music already. That's something to me, man. When I listen to an artist and they sample someone or whatever, I'm gonna go find the song they sampled as a musician. Like, oh, what were they listening to? How did they feel at the time when they sampled this? That's just as interesting to me. I know that people are really into lyricism and everything. I'm really into the music side of it, so it's always been super fucking interesting to hear the samples and stuff. Yeah. And I'm gonna pivot to the Wu-Tang album on that, because there's a couple different songs on there where they have like this samples of like, it's like almost mid 90s like top back, like just cruising rap. You know what I mean? Like starting with like Uzi and One of These Days. Both of those songs, they're just like straight. I feel like they're not. If you told me they were recorded in the early mid 90s, I'd be like, yeah, for sure. Yeah, they didn't feel like the right time.
Yeah,
here,
that was gonna be my one big comment on this album, was how like RZA tried to make it real boom bappy and classic compared to like everything that was going on. I mean, I'm pretty sure like that P.D. Pablo song, like right, North Carolina, North Carolina. Oh my god,
that's hilarious.
Yeah, that was what we were listening to.
Yeah. It's so wild, because that was the comparison I was going to draw between both of these albums, right? You had both of these, well, it's a group of artists with Wu-Tang and then Krs-one. They were big in their own time period, and then at this kind of the same year, they were like, all right, this is kind of how we're going to come back, and we're going to do what we got, where we did. It was a return to their kind of roots on both aspects, right? He returned to his lyricism and how good he was at it, and they returned to like their hardcore rap, like 4 or 5 of us on a track, you know what I mean? But Old Dirty Bastard was in jail or some shit, so like they had some other stuff going on, so it wasn't the complete thing, but they still had enough of the core group to go in there and put this album down. And man, like, it was pretty cool to me because I'd heard the classic one, and I didn't want to do something that I really had delved into a lot. Right. I really wanted to jump into an album that I hadn't listened to. So this was why I picked that album. And it was the same time period. I just got kind of lucky that the thought process was the same for both of them.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I'd never heard of this album.
Yeah, it's pretty good, man. It was a pretty good album. I mean, obviously, when you have Wu-Tang, you have like 9 different creative people in the room at a time. So like not every track you're going to like. I feel like that's the same with all of their albums. You know what I mean? They've had some ones where it's just bangers, you know what I mean? But almost with all their art they put out, like this this is his song, and then this one's the next one's, and that, and they go down the line. You know, RZA does what he can for everybody, right? But like when they get together creatively, like that's the best tracks usually for me personally. When they're like 3 or 4 of them rapping on, when Method Man comes in on Radioactive, it's just like so classic Method Man. It's unbelievable, dude. And those are the ones where I'm like, oh yes, that's the Wu-Tang that I like. Yeah. So I mean, you know, hey, they were more successful than most people, but it will be, you know. So
yeah,
who are we to criticize, you know? But at the same time, it's pretty awesome, and I'm almost nostalgic to listen to this album because you know it wasn't in their heyday. You know, this was kind of their last like thing before they kind of, I think Method and Red like went off on their own and shit. And,
they'd all been doing like solo projects, like a few years prior, so. Yeah, it's pretty dope that they were still able to come together for this one and lay it down. Yeah,
man.
Yeah, show them they still got it.
My favorite hook of the whole album though is "Back in the Game," because it starts off "Back in the Game." I can't even remember the lyrics. I'm gonna have to look them up. But that album, it's so funky, man.
I'm pretty sure that was one of the only tracks that RZA didn't produce on that album.
Was it "Back in the Game"?
Yeah, it was that. There was another one. But there was like some of the other dudes that are like produced with him, I think, made those tracks.
Man, of course I can't find it. Oh well. Well, I mean, what's awesome about both of these two artists is, like you said before, Krs-one, he's on another level, I think, just as an artist, as a rapper. I mean, to be able to have this as an intro, to be able to go back in to know he had more stuff that was more prolific than this is pretty awesome. I think most of the articles I looked up still gave this like a 9 out of 10 or 8 out of 10 for his work, which is pretty badass because then, I mean, where's the ceiling? You know what I mean? If you got to go back and check out more of an encyclopedia of his work if you're not familiar with him, which I probably will. And then the Wu-Tang album for me, the Iron Flag, man, dude, I'm going to have to listen to that like 3 or 4 times through again just to pick up all the stuff. I listened to it like a couple times through, but it's just so much going on from track to track. It's like each track jumps around and it takes you on this weird journey, man. I like albums like that, man. I don't know about yourself.
Yeah, I really like Raekwon on this album. Yeah. And I think my favorite track is actually Iron Flag.
Yeah.
It was bopping.
Babies is pretty good too. Did you listen to that?
Yeah, I listened to the whole thing a couple times. Yeah, I like the third track. I think it's called Chrome and something.
Chrome Wheels.
Yeah, Chrome Wheels. Pretty dope. Yeah, man, I like RZA's producing, man. He's always been one of like my favorites. Like, he's really cool. Like, especially working with all those guys. I think like he knows everyone's style so intimately, so he can really cater his production to like their style. So I think that's always been an interesting, like, dope.
I mean, that is part of the intimate relationship that they have, right? That's why the Wu-Tang was what it was. I feel like,
As far as the KRS album goes, I think I got 3 songs on that I really like.
Yeah.
I like the 4th track, Hot. That was like what put me on the album.
Okay.
Yeah, when I was in 5th grade, and that song used to come on Rap City in the basement. And I had like my sister Alice had this little like Mattel like microphone karaoke thing. It was just some little dumb plastic thing. But I used to put a cassette in there and record all the Rap City music videos.
Nice.
And that was like my first playlist. And then I ended up a couple years later, I bought that album when I was in Baltimore. And I think Dr. Dre Chronic 2001 was like my first hip hop album, but KRS was like the next thing I got into. And I remember like bringing that CD home. We were like out for the day. We were in Baltimore, Maryland with my parents and shit. And we were like out for the day, and we went to this music store. And then I was like insistent that we all go home so I could go listen to this. Yeah. And then I get home and I put it on, and like, I put that song on that I like, and I hear him like cussing in it, and even though I think some of it's kind of like bleeped out, like my little like 6th grade self was just or 5th grade, I don't even know how old it was, but I was just like so like taken back by it, and I like had to put it down for a while. Yeah,
just exposed you to a new world.
Yeah, for real.
The radio edit version is much different.
Yeah, but then I picked it up again, man, and it like changed everything. I've listened to that album probably more than like any album in the world, and that song Hip Hop Knowledge, like if you really listen to that song, man, that can tell you he kind of goes through like the history of hip hop, and he's really like he kind of tails off towards the end of the song, but like the first like minute and a half, 2 minutes of that song, he's talking about like the late 80s, the early 90s, kind of mentions Stop the Violence. He kind of talks about the flow of hip hop. So, you know, I think like if you're down to get deep and you can get down on like that side of stuff with him, I mean, I think there's a lot to learn there.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. And one more thing I'll say about him is, I've been to a few hip hop shows in my life, and nothing was ever as hype as Krs-one. Even though I'm not gonna lie, I felt kind of weird leaving that show. Like, this is like a whole nother thing, but I felt like me and him weren't brothers. If that makes sense. It's weird, bro. Like, it's like a whole tangent I'm not really trying to get down on, but like, and my sister felt the same way. I mean, we grew
It just wasn't that relatable. In that aspect,
yeah, like he didn't relate to me. It's like it's like you're not speaking to like me.
Definitely.
That's what I felt like.
That's a hard thing to do, right? When your audience, I mean, as an artist, right? You're supposed to relate to your audience, right? Like that's the goal. But that's a weird interaction.
Yeah, man. I think and like this isn't, I can't necessarily say this because like it's not like he's here to say anything back. But personally, is like sort of like a cookie cutter looking white dude. I didn't really feel like, I feel like I represent a lot of things that he's against, like not that he's like against, but it's
he's
like
had to fight against
his culture. Had to fight against.
Yeah, he's had to battle against to become what he is.
Exactly. Yeah.
He doesn't see you in the same light, you know.
Yeah.
Or he shouldn't see you that in the same light.
And that's probably not, I mean, he's very smart and very deep, but it's just like he's so extreme, and like I felt like I'm very like empathetic, and I can feel energy in a lot of this shit, and like what, like that whole experience of that show, like what it was, like me and her ended up leaving early. Like we were like, I don't know, man. Like it was just weird.
I mean, dude, that's even a part. I was gonna say, for me with the Wu-Tang, the first time I was experienced, my sister is 10 years older than me, my oldest sister, and she went off to college, and she like left me some albums and like Wu-Tang albums in there. And basically, you know, I was like, oh, can't tell anybody about this. You know what I mean? And what's wild is like I couldn't relate to that. Like growing up, have no relation to like gangster, like straight, especially the violent shit that they're rapping about. But it's almost fantasy at that point, right? You know what I mean? Of course, like I can never. I don't know. It was a weird thing because I'm such a huge fan of theirs. But yeah, all of it doesn't necessarily relate to me on a face value at all. Yeah. It was just I was a huge fan of the lyricism that they used and stuff, and maybe that's why some of the times, man, it's great to appreciate these guys from afar, just as their art, you know. And you go see them live, and you're like, damn.
Don't take it personally.
Yeah, don't take it personally. Don't
pretty much.
Basically, yeah, man. Well, man, you know. I appreciate you doing this shit because, like, you're one of the first people to come on to actually wanted to do an album that wasn't like a singer-songwriter, and which is awesome because I want to diversify. I want to talk about all types of music. You know, we all appreciate music. We all consume music. So whether it be rap, I mean, especially you and I in this age group that we grew up in, like, you listen to everything, man. Like, whatever was on the radio or whatever you were listening to at the time, whether it be rap or whatever, it was all good. You know what I mean? No, I don't feel like there's much less judgment from our age group and below of like genres, right? Like either you're like a purist and you want to listen to just that, or like you're just like, yeah, I listen to all types of music, man. Like I get down with more of this when I feel like I'm happy. I listen to this when I'm angry. I listen to this one. You know what I mean? Like that's how music is to me. So it was really cool to be able to sit down and kind of dissect these albums. And I am in no way or shape qualified to sit here and talk about either of these artists and like criticize them. And I didn't want to, but it was really cool to break down some of their way that they approached, especially Krs-one, because I had never like really listened to him before. You know what I mean? Because he's really deep. He is really fucking deep, man. And he really makes you think about a lot of stuff. and also too, like you're saying, like a lot of the hardships he had, a lot of the stuff he had to get through to get there, you can kind of hear it in his rapping where he's like he's not really taking shit from anybody. He's kind of he's telling you how it was and how, I mean, he's successful from nothing, so he kind of doesn't need to listen to anybody else's opinion at that moment. But
he's got power in his voice.
Hell yeah, man. Well, shit. Anything else you want to
add? Last thing I'll say. One thing would be cool to look up on him is Krs proclaims that anyone who tried to diss him, if he put a diss track out about them, it ended their career. Yeah.
Hell yeah, dude. I think I read that too. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Oh man, I gotta take some better notes next time.
Some boss shit.
Hell yeah, man. Well, thank you for coming in, Nicky.
Yeah, bud.
Appreciate it, dude. And
thanks for having me.